The Killers, The Killers, Ernest Hemingway's The Killers, directed by Rob Mark, Andre Tarkovsky, and Don Siegel. The Killers. There's the other covers inside there. I can't pull them apart because they taped them together like stupid library. Anyway, hello there, Nate Jackson, Criterion Collector Reviewer, guy of all sorts of places and peoples and movies and adaptations and yeah. Number 176, Ernest Hemingway's The Killers. 3 different adaptations of Ernest Hemingway's The Killers. One from 1946, directed by Rob Sidemak. Number 30, one from 1956, directed by Andre Tarkovsky, we remember from Andrei Rublev and Solaris. And one from 1964, directed by Don Siegel. Oh man. I went into this not sure exactly how to, go about directing or reviewing this one. But after hearing the short story, there's a reading of the short story on here by Stacy Keach from Mike Hammer. And I think it's best, let's just summarize. Let's start with the source, the short story. So, Ernest Hemingway's Killers, I think it was written in 1927-29, and it's about, there's these 2 gangsters who walk into this diner. They want dinner. Dinner's not served yet, so they threaten they bug the guy, and he gives them sandwiches. They tell the owner that they're going to kill the gas station attendant. They were sent to kill the gas station attendant down the street. His name is Ole Anderson, also known as the Swede. This boy named Nick Adams, this young man named Nick Adams, is tied up because he's sitting at the bar, and the chef is tied up in the back, and they go off to kill him. The diner guy, I think his name's George, unties the cook and the young man Nick, and Nick goes off to tell Ole that these 2 guys are going to go kill him, and he says, okay. Ole accepts his death, basically. Kind of just doesn't freak out or anything. And so the killers come and kill him. Nick goes back and tells George they got him. And they're like, and George is like, oh, well, okay. And that's basically it. The whole concept, I mean, there's nothing more to it. It's basically these 2 guys kill him. But the whole, I think the big point of the story is that he accepts his death, It's not explained why he's killed. It is only explained, that Ole accepts these guys that killed me. He knows what he did, and because of that, he just accepts his death. And it's a question. It raises up a question: why would a man just accept death? And that's what the movie explores. The 1946 movie explores. Because it's so much more. You couldn't make a movie about a full 90, 100-minute movie based on this this adaptation, this little short film. I mean, it took Stacy Keach 17 minutes to read it, so you figure you can't. How are you going to stretch 17 minutes into a full feature-length film? So what they do is obviously explain why the killers killed Ole. So let's talk. So first of all, of course, let's start with the 46 edition. So stars Burt Lancaster, Ava Gardner, 1946, 102 minutes, and so the first 20 minutes is about shows what the short story basically, and then we get the story of Reardon, Ed Reardon, I think his name is, who is a life insurance investigator, and he wants to give the money that Ole had stashed away to somebody, to whoever rightfully owns it. But first he has to find out where it's hidden and who, why they killed him and all that. And so he has to go about he goes around interviewing all these different people associated with Ole, and we find out his life story from him. We find out that Ole was a boxer who broke his hand and became just kind of fell into the wrong crowd. He ended up doing time for stealing jewelry for his girlfriend, who I think the girlfriend is played by Ava Gardner. Her name's Kitty Collins, I think. And so when he gets out, he gets into this robbery. He gets involved with this robbery, and where they steal money from this hat company, and they decide to the other robbers decide to hightail it off without telling Ole. He breaks into their farm that they're hiding out in. He steals the money back. He runs away with Kitty. And then they go, I think, to New Orleans or Vegas or something. The next morning, he wakes up to find out that Kitty's gone. She took the money, and so she went back, and yeah, it's all kinds of crazy. This is where I kind of forget the story. Eventually, Reardon catches up with all the different mobsters and all that, and eventually it all leads to Kitty. Kitty puts together the final piece of the story. And eventually, she brings the money back to the guys, and the main guy whose names I can't remember, and they didn't bother to give me a cast listing, and so it's hard to remember everything. But so eventually the main head guy gets killed at the end, and it has something to do with Kitty telling Ole that the killers were after him. I think she ends up telling him that the other guy has the money, and I don't know, I'm lost. I just totally forget what's going on. But anyway, the ending and basically the movie ends with Kitty going to jail and all that because the guy who died at the end didn't clear her name, even though she wasn't technically involved with the robbery or Ole's killing. She wasn't involved with the murder of Ole. She didn't know. But because the guy dies before he could say Kitty is innocent, I guess she's taken off. And so anyway, Reardon, finishes the case, and his boss is happy, and yeah. So it's not a bad movie. It's a really interesting adaptation of the story, and it's really cool to see what a new original story based on. It is based on the killers, and it shows how Ole eventually realized the action, his actions, and accepted them in the end. So yeah, how do I rate this? So I'll give this one a rating. I'll give it an A. Yeah, it's not bad. Not a bad film. Actually no, an A minus. It was a little tricky to follow at times, and that's why I'll give it an A minus. But still, a really good film, a really gritty gangster film noir film, and just Ava Gardner's gorgeous. The actress who played Ole's first girlfriend, Lily, is gorgeous too, and of course Burt Lancaster is a knockout star. And yeah, it's some great acting all around. Cinematography is wonderful. Great movie. The Killers, 1946, A minus. Really good. All right, now the supplements. Now, the second adaptation, which is probably the worst. Not because it's Andrei Tarkovsky, but for two obvious reasons. First of all, in the story, the chef is a black man. This is 1920. Guess what they decided to call the black man? I'll let you stew on it for a second. Hemingway makes no attempt to not call him that name. And of course, so when Tarkovsky, the Tarkovsky adaptation is just the story. Just the story. It was a student film he made, and it was basically just a straight adaptation of the film. And the short story. So he takes a lot of the dialogue from the short story, including that word. The other thing, which I didn't like hearing, I didn't like the fact that he decided to, he kept that in. But of course, to make matters worse, I guess the fact that there were no, let's just say the fact that there were no black Russians in the 50s didn't bother Tarkovsky too much, as he just got one of his friends to put blackface on. As an African American male, that kind of, of course, that upsets me just a little. Which is actually funny because I don't mind it. In the cartoons, like the Looney Tunes cartoons, where they have adaptations of black men. Only 50 50-60% of the time, I mean, actually 50-40%, 40-50% of the time, they're actually like making fun of black people. Most of the time they're just caricatures of black men. They're unfortunate caricatures. But in this instance, it's like you really had to. I mean, I guess I don't know. It didn't need to happen for me personally. I mean, maybe I'm just beating on him because it's Tarkovsky and I'm not fond of his direction or his movies. But yeah, anyway, that's not my favorite. Straight, yeah. So I give it a D minus. No, yeah, D minus. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then there's another adaptation. Yeah. Oh wait, no. But there was also a video interview with Stuart M. Kinimsky, who wrote a biography on Don Siegel, where he talks basically about the differences between the 46 adaptation and the 63 adaptation. And then there's another radio adaptation of the play of the movie, which is like shoved into 1/2 hour, which really doesn't work. It's really, really hard to shove all of that into a half hour. Well, less than a half hour. What's even funnier is that the last 5 minutes, like at the screen, it's typical at the end of these screen directors' playhouses that they get like the director to come out on the radio. They maybe tell a few humorous lines, and Robert Sidemak is just all over the place with jokes, telling about how he's an American even though he's like European. He's like, I'm from Tennessee, Nashville, Tennessee, and the audience is just busting up at this guy, So you're not sure if you want to take him seriously or not. So anyway, it's an awkward adaptation, but I love those old radio plays, and so it's pretty cool. Of course, there's production stills, publicity stills, biographies, behind the scenes stuff, the press book, ads, and then there's trailers. But we get the trailer for the Killers, but we also get the trailers for a couple of other Cinemac films, such as Cobra Woman, Crisscross. Those are the only two I remember. There's like 5 of them or so. And so yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool package. So, like I said, that's a really, really good adaptation. The Killers, the 46th edition is cool. Now, let's switch gears tonight. Let's fast forward to 1964. The Killers. Don Siegel's The Killers. 1964, 94 minutes. What was supposed to be the first made-for-TV film. However, the thing, it was originally supposed to be called Johnny North, and it was supposed to, however, they ended up calling it Ernest Hemingway's The Killers and basically killed it because the 64 edition has absolutely basically nothing to do with Ernest Hemingway's short story. There's no diner scene. It is basically an adaptation of everything that happens after the diner scene in the 46 version. So it's about the killers. It's actually about the killers and them killing a guy and wanting to find out why they but it's a little more different actually because the killers. Okay, so there's a lot of main differences. First of all, Lieve Marvin and Clu Gallagher, Gulager play the killers. And it's basically from their point of view throughout the most of the story. They are hired to kill this guy who's working at a home for the blind, and they kill him off. And even though he's warned, and he accepts it, just like the story. But however, unlike this, there's no life insurance guy. It's the killer himself. It's the killer Charlie, who's played by Lieve Marvin, who's like thinking on the train. He's thinking, why did we have to kill that guy? Let's find out. And so they make a habit of finding, because there's money involved too, so they're thinking about that. But they want to find out, what's going on. So they interview these people who are close to the guy they killed, Johnny North. Johnny North he's not a boxer in this one. He is a race car driver. He's played by John Cassavetes, who we'll get a couple of his films in the near future, in a couple of years, because there's a John Cassavetes director 5 films box set. And the girl is played by Angie Dickinson. It's Sheila Hunt, I think her name is. And so Johnny and Sheila fall in love, um, and they're kept together by Claude Rains, who plays Lou. I think he's like the pit stop owner or something like that. And so Johnny is in this wreck, and he, loses his, credibility, or like he's in this wreck where he's blind for a little while. And I think maybe that's why he just loses his eyesight. And he's in like a hospital and all that. And so he goes off, and he eventually like loses. He ends up like racing in like these smaller funny car races. It's like kind of like a less impressive racing thing. Mostly because, but in that time he finds out that Sheila is actually mixed up with this gangster who's played by Ronald Reagan, whose name I can't remember. And his sidekick is named Shorty, who's played by Norman Fell, who we know from Three's Company as Mr. Roper. So there's a lot of like names that I've actually recognized, a lot of faces I recognize in this movie too. So that's pretty. The star power of this film is definitely working in our favor, But yeah, and so it's basically the rest of the story. The killers basically go about finding out. They interview Shorty in the steam room, and he tells them that they and all that, and they eventually find out that Sheila is back with Reagan's character, and at the end they go off to kill Reagan's character, and the killers actually die at the hand of them, and they get away. And yeah, so that's basically it. It's very, very awkward. It's very, very it's awkward because it honestly has nothing to do with Ernest Hemingway's The Killers. Yet they called it that, and they tried to change the title. And because they called it that, it didn't do. I don't think it did as well as it did. And there's a letter that I think that Don wrote to Angie, or Lee wrote to Angie, and I guess Angie Dickinson was in tears over how bad the movie went, and how I think they criticized her performance or something like that. So it was like a consoling letter saying, we tried to get the title changed, and we're really convinced that the reason why this movie didn't do well is because of the title. And yeah, so just trying to console her on that. But yeah, it's not bad. It does work as a made-for-TV movie, but it was never shown on TV mostly because it was too violent, and a lot of people also were concerned with the fact that it was done in '64, pretty close to after Kennedy's death. It was actually produced during the Kennedy assassination, and so yeah, that was kind of like put a grim cloud over the production. And yeah, so that kind of ruined its chances of being like a really big, film. I think it did rather well. It did well, but it didn't do critically well, mostly because it was, tied into it was tied in as a remake of the original film, and it just doesn't work as well. But yeah, so that's all I can really say about it. The star power is great. The acting is wonderful. I mean, I think it works well as its own story. But because we tie it in, into this, the Ernest Hemingway, who's such a huge name in literature, we tie it to him. It doesn't work. So I want to rate this one low because of that, but because I'm willing to separate the name from the movie, I want to give it. I don't know. I want to give it a B minus. I'll give it a B minus, just because it's like I said, it's pretty awkward at times, especially after seeing The Killing, and The Killers, and how well that worked, the 46 version. Yeah, so I'll give it a B minus. Not bad. Definitely essential if you're interested in seeing if you're in this package. I would definitely recommend this package, just because. In fact, I might get it. I believe it's still in print. It might be out of print. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Yeah, so B minus. Supplements. There's an interview with Clu Gulager, who plays Lee, one of the killers. He talks about, working with Don and all that. There's an excerpt from Don Siegel's autobiography, where he talking about the making of the film and the movie. and working with how I guess Ronald Reagan and Ronald Reagan was like really difficult to work with by that point and all that, and so he relates his experiences working with him on that movie. Production correspondence and all that, including the NBC broadcast standards, which I love reading those, like the censorship things, like what was so taboo back then. There's a lot about Angie Dickinson's sexuality that you can't wear like too tight of a dress, or she can't, the kiss can't be sexual, a sexual kiss, It's like that's just so trippy to like how uptight we were back then, back in the 60s. And yeah, and then of course production stills, behind the scenes, trailer, advertisements, all that good stuff. So yeah, so then that's all about it. So these 3 adaptations of The Killers, we go 46, A minus, 56, D minus, 64, B minus. Not bad. Still, a really intriguing package, and it's a really wonderful look at how a story, the evolution of a story, how just a simple short story just gets blown out of proportion. It's like that TV show Episodes, which I particularly like. It's a show about this British couple who have a successful show in Britain, and an American producer wants to make their own version of it, and they end up making all these changes to it until it resembles nothing like, it looks nothing like the original show. And that's kind of what this is. I mean, like, we started off with this short story about these killers who kill a guy who accepts his death, to this story about these killers who want to know why killing this guy was so easy, and he's a race car driver, and yeah. So, it's a pretty trippy story, but not a bad one, apart from, the N-word. Ernest Hemingway's The Killers, check it, get it. I might, maybe. We'll see. Alright, so that's it for today. Tomorrow, we got Lost Honor, Katharina Bloom, number 177. And then My Life as a Dog, hopefully that should be in this week. And of course, I'm going to try to get to that one. I'm going to try to get to that one Thursday, because Sunday we may not have a review on Sunday. We might have another supplement review. I do have some more, like I said, I have some more supplement movies coming in, some more recent supplement movies that are coming in. But yeah, the Curious Yellow and Blue movies are there. I just got to get them. I'll get to them sometime, probably Monday, maybe Sunday, not sure. Probably Monday though. Monday, and yeah, I'll do both movies probably the same day. And yeah, then the other ones, Straw Dogs, it's on its way. We'll do that probably Tuesday. And yeah, so then the Les Dames du Sudubakj, and then By Brackage, I still got to put a hold on that. Should probably get on that. And that's all I can remember right now. So we are plowing through them. We're already done with 176. Like I said, we're a quarter of a way done. We are coming up to that showdown, the season finale, and yeah, so then we're almost done. So hopefully, I'm hoping mid-May we'll be done with the season, with this whole season, because it's looking good. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging in there, because I know this was a long one. Not as long as, obviously, the Monterey Pop or our last Fear and Living Las Vegas one, but had a lot to explain on this one. So thanks for hanging in there. Morals. Don't be a killer. I don't know. Don't break your hand in boxing. If you're driving a car and your right rear wheel breaks off, stop. Just drop out of the race. Don't get yourself killed or get yourself in a situation where your car will explode. And what else? One of the orals. And don't dress in blackface. There's no reason for it. Don't be Amos and Andy. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we will see you tomorrow for Lost Honor, Katharina Bloom. And until then, goodbye.